Hi everyone, I'm back with Jolyne's part 2 video. It's been a few months since I posted the part 1 and I'm really grateful for all the positive feedbacks from you guys. I wasn't sure whether to continue the part 2 or not, but seeing your comments really motivated me to finish it. Thank you so much, and I hope this video helps you in your future Jolyne cosplay. I would also really love to see it, so don't forget to tag me or send it on my Instagram at mendokichi. The pattern I used for the top is a basic bodice pattern that I made based on my actual measurements. I traced out the shape that I want for my top using this pattern. I also made a mock-up to see what needed to be adjusted. I cut out these pieces for the center detail on Jolyne's top and cut it out on different leather colors. I drew some details on the butterfly using a pen that doesn't smudge easily. Then I cut out the bodice pieces on the leather fabric. This is how all the pieces look when put together. Then I sew the seams together. Using the contact cement, I glued the seams flat to reduce the bulk in the bust area. As I explained on my last video, this adhesive works by putting it on the surface of both parts that you want to stick together and then waiting it to dry a little before actually sticking them together. You can also read the instructions on the bottle on how long you should wait. The one I got says to wait for 20 to 25 minutes. Then I press the seams flat. Since the bust area has a curve, it's also best to press it following its curve. In my case, I used my knee. This is how the seams look like. I also drew out the web pattern that I'm going to sew next. I skipped filming a lot of part in this video, but if you want to see how I did it, check out the part 1 of this tutorial. I also cut out a lining piece for the top. I made sure the lining stretches like the leather. It's the same fabric I used for the lining of the skirt. Next is sewing the lining. I put the leather and lining together, wrong sides facing each other, then stitched it along the edges. Next is sewing the binding along the edges. I did the same method that I used for the skirt. Now that I have sewed the binding on the edges, it's time to use the contact cement. Who else writes their to-do list on the back of their hands? Just me? Okay. This is how it looks like glued and pressed. After this, it's time to sew them. I wasn't able to film the sewing part because my tripod broke and it was such a hassle sewing all the piled up leather fabrics together. As you can see, the sewing isn't the best, but it looks okay in the front, so I don't mind. Next, I added the elastic. I decided to use elastic for the back because it's more convenient, especially when wearing leather, and it's also a snug fit. After finishing the top, it's time to add the center detail. I glued all the pieces together using the contact cement. I didn't have a hammer, so I used the handle of a screwdriver. Then I positioned it on where I wanted to place it, and then glued it in place. You might be wondering how I was able to connect this top with the skirt. I thought a lot about this and there were other options, but I don't want to complicate things. So I thought of the easiest way, and it is to attach it like how you would attach a suspenders. I used hooks on each of the extensions of the top and I attached the pair on the skirt. I used hooks for each web that connects with the skirt, and then I added its pair on the skirt. I wore both pieces together and marked where I should attach the hook and eye. And this is how it should look like on the skirt. I did the same for the neckline. The top is finished and I actually made a second version of this where I fixed all the things that I wanted to improve after completing the first one. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to film the process this time, so I'm just gonna show you the difference of both tops. The first top I made, the edges were covered with this leather binding, which made it bulky and hard to sew. In the second version, instead of using binding, I added a 1 cm fold allowance on the edges. I used contact cement to keep the fold in place and then secured it by sewing all the edges. This method worked really well and it reduced the bulk on the top. So I suggest you guys to do this method instead. We are not yet done with this video. Just a little bonus, I decided to make Jolyne's boots from scratch because I still had a lot of leftover leather fabric. The first thing I did was I cut a rectangle with the height that I want for the boots. Then I wrapped it around my leg, pinned it in place, and then traced them along the shape of my leg. I used that pattern and made the other pair. I also added these green squares for the details, then marked where I want to place the squares and then sewed it in place. I bought this super cheap shoes that kinda resembles the silhouette that I'm going for and covered it with leather. I separated it into two parts to make sure I can cover the shoes perfectly. I used lots of contact cement for this. I added the green leather strip around the shoes and also for the heels. This is how I wear the shoes. I decided to separate them into two parts because I don't have any idea how to attach this part on the shoe. And I think it will be really difficult. So what I did instead is I added the hook and eye on the front where I can attach both parts together. It looks really good when worn and I'm really satisfied with the results. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I have more Jojo costume content coming up in the future. Just a little spoiler, I'm planning to make Bucciarati's outfit and Jotaro's coat. Stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe, comment, and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you guys again soon.